I can't believe I've never ranked the Gotei 13 from Bleach. I've done the Stern Ritter, I've done the Akatsuki, I've done the Seven Warlords, but the Gotei 13 has escaped this channel. But tonight is where it ends, because we're going to be ranking the Gotei 13 members of the beginning of the series from weakest to strongest. Now, I mentioned the beginning of the series. We do need to go over some ground rules as well, though, because I'm including 4 extra characters on this list. So we've got the Gotei 13 with Aizen, Gin, and Kaname. We're also adding in Shinji, Rose, and Kensei. And just for the hell of it, give you a little bit of an Easter egg, a spoiler, we're going to have Kisuke Urahara on this list as well. And in the future, we might do a Gotei 13 of Turn Back the Pendulum, and also a Gotei 13 in the 1,000 Year Blood War arc, because they're quite different. I didn't want to just include like all captains, because one, the video will be too long, but also people like Byakuya's grandfather and stuff like that are a little bit nebulous to rank. So to start off, to get a gauge where all the captains are sitting at, I thought these are the best crop of candidates we could ask for. So it's going to be 17 characters that we're going to rank, and without further ado, let's get into it. In 17th place, we have Jushiro Ukitake. Now, this is a man that is simply ranked here because he's almost impossible to rank. He is very likely when he's like healthy, he's most likely on par with Shunsui, and no surprise, of course, he's more in the top 4, top 5 type of characters, meaning Jushiro would be incredibly strong. You might even say that he's more powerful than Shunsui, just for having the arm of the Soul King, giving him a massive boost to his Ryatsu that he possesses. But he's so inconsistent with his sickness, where he can get taken out by just taking on hollows. Objectively stronger hollows than normal ones, but like the shape-shifting one that took out Kaien. His sickness was enough to limit him to being able to defeat an opponent like that. And because it happens so regularly, he's just way too inconsistent to place any higher than last place. So, unfortunately, Ukitake fits in dead last. I will say, with the Hell arc going on, if we see more of him, in the future, he could very well be bumped up on this list with your kind of heavy hitters of the captains, but for right now, he has to be in 17th place. In 16th place, I'm really, really sorry to say this, because I do love him as a character, but we have Komamura. Oh, my boy Komamura. So don't turn off, please. I am going to give everyone a little treat for Komamura. I am going to also give you a placement of where he should be when he activates his, when he does the special ritual of his race, where he essentially sacrifices his own heart to gain temporarily boosting strength and immortality. We are going to rank that where he would be in that state compared to this level of captains. I know I said we're not doing the 1,000 Year Blood War strength. The reason why I'm giving it to Komamura, though, is because technically what he does in the 1,000 Year Blood War arc, technically speaking, he could have done that in the Soul Society arc, for instance. There was no stopping him from gaining that amount of power whenever he wanted to. Of course, it just comes with the massive downside of being a double-edged sword, of essentially robbing you of your sense of self. So, I am going to, for a treat, I am going to rank where I think he would go. He's the only character where I'm going to give him his 1,000 Year Blood War kind of feats, just because I think it's a fair assumption compared to the others that went through training. Now, why he's second last, ostensibly last, because of Ukitake being last place doesn't really count due to the shenanigans around him. Why he's last, I'm not going to discuss as we talk about Komamura. I'm going to get into the characters above him, why I've ranked them higher than Komamura. Because in 15th place, we actually have our first of the Vizards. We have Kensei. Now, this is another man with a really sick design, just like Komamura, but in my mind, he just doesn't do much at all. He's very much feetless. He loses to Wonder Weiss. He loses to Master Masculine, and he essentially he's Zanpakuto, while cool on the surface, is very kind of limiting. His Shikai is quite possibly more useful than his Bunkai. I don't know if that's controversial to say. In his Shikai, though, he can fire off air slashes that then will explode. And then in his Bunkai, he kind of gains like knuckle dusters, and he can, when he punches someone, the force of the punch explodes, and if he, the more contact he has with a person, the more damage that it does. Now, this is a very, very limiting technique in my mind, and it, like, you know, it does a lot of damage to kind of like monster type of characters, but if he runs up to a Soul Reaper and boom, kind of blows them up with a fist, which often doesn't been shown to kill anyone, why could he not have just stabbed someone with his Zanpakuto and probably done more damage? It's just a very... It's one of the biggest kind of... what's the right word? A letdown of a Bunkai I've ever seen in the series. It might even be my least favorite Bunkai. I reckon Komamura has a cooler Bunkai. The only reason Kensai is above him is that I think that, ironically enough, Kensai's Bunkai would just work really well against Komamura's Bunkai. The sheer size of Komamura's Bunkai means that Kensei has a lot more time due to being a lot faster and a lot more of a circumference of an area to get his kind of more bigger AoE attacks on Komamura's Bunkai, and we know that damage also then transfers to Komamura himself. So I will give it to Kensei over Komamura, but I will say I also reckon there are some enemies that perhaps Kensei wouldn't be able to beat that Komamura could be able to beat. But I've got a list here. Apologies for looking off screen, just so I don't miss anyone or the order of this and have to go back and redo it. In 14th place... Oh, if any of the characters so far have been controversial, this one will definitely do it for you all. In 14th place, we actually have Hitsugaya. Now, remember, this isn't Thousand Year Blood War Hitsugaya. This is Karakura Town Hitsugaya and Soul Society Hitsugaya. Now, his Zanpakuto is incredibly versatile, and the fact that he can freeze people through kind of pinpoint dragon ice attacks and then the lotuses coming down from the sky. He's got AoE range. He's also got pinpoint attacks like we were mentioning. He's very, very versatile. He lacks a bit of experience and he lacks raw power. The reason why I think the jump from Hitsugaya to from Kensei and Komamura is quite large, and he's kind of on par with the next couple above him. I just think the next couple characters above him would actually be defeating him. And I know that's going to really piss off a lot of people, because in 13th place, come on Jack, get it right. In 13th place, we actually have a character that a lot of people don't like. We actually have Soifone. Now, I reckon a lot of people would rank Hitsugaya above Soifone. I could even see a lot of people putting Soifone dead last, or at least after Ukitake. But in my mind, she's actually quite strong in this, and quite deadly is the right word to use. Her Bunkai, like, it's impressive for AoE damage. It can certainly kind of maybe get through some of Hitsugaya's defenses. But it's her Shikai, it's her speed, and it's her Shunpo technique that really, really kind of give her the win in my mind over Hitsugaya. I reckon with her speed, she can kind of get in close and get her double hit Suzumabachi off on Hitsugaya. I also reckon, you know, narratively, I feel like Kubo was letting us know that he kind of put Soifone above Hitsugaya, in the sense of, in the Karakura Town arc, she was fighting the number 2 Espada, while Hitsugaya was fighting the number 3 Espada. And I just think with how deadly she is in close range, and with Hitsugaya being more of a mid-range to long-range fighter, I think that Soifone is just more dangerous to opponents in Bleach. And I'm going to give 13th spot to Soifone. Now, 12th and 11th spot have probably been the most difficult to rank due to not seeing too many feats from them. In 12th spot, we actually have another Visor. We have Rose. Now, Rose is a really, really cool character, and it's a sick character design and a sick Zanpakuto ability. In its Shikai, turning his blade into a whip, which can then, surround people and explode, and he can use music through it. And then his Bankai, creating illusions through music that are so real that it tricks the brain that they start getting impacted by fire and water, and their physical body starts feeling it, I think is really, really strong. There's not many people like Master Masculine that would, go in and goddamn burst their own eardrums. Not many people are that crazy. So his Bankai, I reckon, would work on a lot of people. And this is where I think we go up another tier as well. We had Hitsugaya and Soifone in their own tier, and then I think we go up again into a different tier. Once again, though, the reason why I've had Rose here is because I just think the people above him are getting the win over him. Just like with Komamura, Soifone being able to get like a double hit on him, just with how large his Bankai is very likely. And with Hitsugaya being able to get I forget the name of the attack, but the rose petals that bloom and freeze a target, which come down from the sky in massive AoE fashion. Those two attacks work really well on Komamura. And with Rose, I feel like he just won't be able to beat the people above him. Because in 10th place, let me make sure, no, sorry, I misspoke, this is why we've got a list here, Jack. In 11th spot is Shinji. Now, that one might be controversial as well, because lots of people really love Shinji, and I'm one of them. He's got a very kind of nebulous Zanpakuto where his Bankai doesn't work on a one-on-one fashion, so we have to kind of ignore it. But his Shikai is really, really dangerous, except for the people kind of above him as well. I put Shinji above Rose just because he's the captain of the Visors. Narratively speaking, I don't think we have to do much legwork to say that Shinji would be stronger than Rose. But we're going to go, I know I said this about Komamura, I totally blanked on it. If you can't tell, these videos are not scripted. But we're going to go into the next type of characters. We've got 10th spot, 9th spot, about why I couldn't place Shinji and Rose above them. In 10th spot, we have Mayuri Kuretsuchi. Quite possibly one of my favorite captains in the whole show. I find his personality and his charisma and his sense of, he's got that drip, he's got that style. He just really steals the attention every time he's on screen. And so it pains me to have him as 10th. If we were doing 1,000 Year Blood War Arc, I might bump him up a few spots. And if we were giving him unlimited prep time, he would also be a lot higher. He can essentially beat nearly every character that isn't in the top 4 or top 5 with prep time, I reckon. It's just how kind of intelligent Mayuri is. But to explain why I've got him higher than Rose and Shinji, Rose's Bankai being a sound-based Bankai, I feel like Mayuri would have countermeasures to sound-based attacks. We know he goddamn rips scythe blades out of his ears. I think he would have systems put in place that could kind of negate sound, and even if it did get into Mayuri's head, he was impacted by the Bankai. I think he's one of the crazy ones that could formulate some sort of plan to burst his own eardrums, because he's a scientist. He could definitely kind of make himself some new eardrums to go with his body type of thing. He's essentially a cyborg to begin with. So I think Rose's Bankai just wouldn't work, and same with Shinji's. He's Shikai to turn perception around on itself. Just like Aizen did, Mayuri is top 3 smartest characters in the verse, and I think that he would be able to become quite attuned to it quite quickly like Aizen, and be able to go back on the counter-attack against Shinji. And Shinji's attack power isn't so great that he's taking Mayuri down with one move, meaning Mayuri has more than enough time to come adjusted to Shinji's Shikai and form countermeasures and maybe go Bankai himself and get the advantage. So that's why both of them are below Mayuri. In 9th place, we have Kaname Tosen, our first subordinate of Aizen. Now, this man's a monster in a lot of rights. He has a similar, Shikai ability to Rose, where he can use sound to incapacitate an opponent. So it's also quite similar to Mayuri as well, being able to paralyze people with his Shikai. It's just that Kaname does it through sound, and Mayuri does it through direct contact with his Zanpakuto. But it's Kaname's Bankai that's so deadly. It stops people from sensing Ariatsu. It stops people from seeing and hearing anything. Meaning it already hard diffs Rose, so he's above him. With Shinji, Shinji has a quite limited area of effect of his Shikai. If you remember the scent, the miasma, or it's not miasma, the kind of the scent, the fragrance of his Zanpakuto is what draws people into having their perception altered. But Kaname's Bankai is has such a larger AoE range where if he just gets him in the Bankai, Shinji, it doesn't matter with perception being altered. Shinji is just totally blind and vulnerable, and I think Kaname just takes him out as well. As much as that pains me to admit, because I do like Shinji better than Kaname. But we have Mayuri, and Mayuri and Kaname, to give you guys a little bit of kind of inside knowledge to where I was going with this, is the biggest kind of debate I was having, putting them back and forth of who should be stronger than each other. I ended up going with Kaname, because without prep time, I just don't see what Mayuri can do against Kaname's Bankai, while conversely, I can see Kaname having options to avoid Mayuri's Bankai. Oh, I apologize. Meaning, I just had to nudge it to Tosin. And then you can also take into the account that he can holify, meaning his spiritual pressure is going up. He's also being able to fire off Seros and shockwaves. And I just think it makes more sense to give it to Kaname. But Mayuri, those two are neck and neck, I reckon. They're kind of interchangeable, in my opinion. Now we're getting into the heavy hitters of everyone, and we've got 8th spot. And 8th spot I've actually given to Kenpachi Zaraki. This is where we go up a tier as well. I think Kaname, Mayuri, Shinji, and Rose are all in their own tiers. You could potentially say Kaname and Mayuri are in a tier of their own. But this is where we go up another level, because Kenpachi is kind of no-diffing Kaname. We see this in the Soul Society arc. And I think he can do the same to Mayuri. As much of as a difficult opponent is that Mayuri would be to Kenpachi, I do think just with his raw kind of endurance and durability to just keep fighting no matter the damage he takes, I do think that he would be able to beat both of them fairly easily. We see him in... I'm trying to think of the best way to word why I've put him in 8th place. I think the best way to actually go about this is to talk about our 7th place character. A little bit cheating there, but our 7th place character is actually Byakuya Kuchiki. Now, Byakuya and Kenpachi are often kind of in a narrative sense, paired in the same sort of tier. They're both opponents of Ichigo in the Soul Society arc, and that did have some part of impacting where I placed them. But if we remember, this is also not Thousand Year Blood War arc. So Kuchiki hasn't gone through his Squad Zero training, and Kenpachi hasn't gone Shikai or Bankai yet. And how should I go about kind of comparing them? Because other than Mayuri and Kaname, this is probably the hardest pairing as well. Narratively speaking, in the Soul Society arc, it does present it as Byakuya being stronger than Kenpachi. Even though Ichigo doesn't beat Kenpachi, he still essentially draws with him. Even though Ichigo goes down first, it's only very briefly before Kenpachi falls as well. In my mind, that's essentially a draw. Now, conversely, Byakuya does a lot better than Kenpachi, and actually beats a stronger Ichigo, an Ichigo that has gone Bankai at this moment. Yes, Ichigo wins in the long run, but that's only because of his inner hollow. The inner hollow didn't really kind of come into play with the Kenpachi fight the way it did with the Byakuya one. So even though Kenpachi does get stronger after his defeat by Ichigo, or the draw with Ichigo, Byakuya was able to... We know that a Bunkai is about a 10 times multiplier, meaning the Ichigo that was fighting Byakuya is significantly stronger than the Ichigo that was facing Kenpachi. Even if you didn't want to say it was a full 10-time multiplier, like, it is a significant power increase. So I think that we have to give it to Byakuya, like, in favor to Byakuya for the Soul Society arc. In the Arrancar arc, in the Waco Mundo, it actually gets flipped a little bit, because Kenpachi is the one that takes out Espada number 5, Noritora, while Byakuya takes out Espada number 7, Zomari. However, even then, it's up to debate as well, because Kenpachi gets nearly killed by Noritora, while Byakuya is able to defeat Zomari without much effort at all. So the difference in those two spots with the Arrancar kind of gets made up for the ease which both of them kind of had their fight, Byakuya being able to sink it in a lot quicker. I do reckon Kenpachi's biggest win over Byakuya is ironically his two-handed kendo techniques, because with that I find the Senbon Sakura Cherry Blossom Razor Blades would often probably get blown away by the sheer destructive power of Kenpachi using two hands. So there's a lot to talk about, but Byakuya is more versatile and could probably really kind of shred Kenpachi to pieces. But this is another pairing where they can kind of go back and forth. For my kind of just personal stance, I do think that if they were to fight, it would probably be like a 60 to 55% chance that Byakuya would beat Kenpachi. It is really, really tight, but I will put Byakuya ahead of Kenpachi in 7th place. Kenpachi comes in at 8th, Kaname comes in at 9th, and Mayuri comes in at 10. But now I think we go up in tier even more, because we have Gin Ichimaru in 6th place. Now, this is the last character I think we have until we get into kind of the more god tier type of captains. But I just did a video on Gin Ichimaru. I'm going to chuck it up on the screen, where it's a massive video. We go 40 minutes into how powerful I think Gin is and why I think that. In that video, I talk about why he's stronger than Kenpachi and Byakuya. So I'm going to just leave it there. You guys need to go and watch that one to find out my thoughts on it. But with an overpower and a hacks Bunkai, I do think Gin gets the victory over these two men, and I think it's actually quite easy that he gets the victory. That might be blasphemous to say, but Gin deserves all the love in the world. He is quite possibly the most underrated character in all of Bleach. In 5th place, though, we actually have Yachiru Unohana. Now, this is a hard one to rank. We are ranking her off what we see in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, because we have no reason to believe that she would be weaker in the Karakura Town arc than she was there. Meaning, we know for a fact that she's stronger than Kenpachi. I do reckon she'd be able to get past Gin just because of her sheer experience, her healing ability, the versatility and mid-range attacks that she has with her Blood Bunkai Minazuki, and just with the sheer tenacity and overwhelming spiritual pressure that she does have, I would put her above Gin. A real monster that was said to be kind of the strongest captain of the OG captains. But we know that they've kind of weakened a little bit. We know Yamamoto wasn't as strong in the modern day time as he was with the original Gotei 13. Yes, he's refined his Bunkai more, but he's not as ruthless as well. And you would imagine that the old age kind of does kick in for them a little bit. So I would say she's not as strong as she was then. And that's the reason why I actually put the next two characters higher than her. Because in 4th place, I actually have Kisuke Urahara. The reason why I have him here is because of his sheer kind of probably the most versatile Bunkai in the entire series, where it's able to reconstruct his own body. I think that the damage that Unohana would be able to do to him, he would be able to kind of rectify in himself and fire back. They have very similar attacks of you know, Benahime energy slashes and Minazuki's blood slashes kind of countering each other out. But Urahara is pretty much confirmed to be the smartest man in the entire series. So I do think he'd be able to come around with, you know, different kind of, you know, his Gigai disposable puppet and things like that where he would be able to get around Unohana. So I am giving it to Kisuke in this way. But once again, it is... Look, if we wanted to take some power scaling into it as well, Kisuke, you know, in Thousand Year Blood War Arc, once again, because there's no reason why he would have gotten stronger over that year time frame. But Kisuke is fighting one of the, not just the Sturm Ritter, completely blanking on what that, the Schutzviertel. My German, my German is terrible, even worse than my Japanese, but you know what I'm saying. The top 4 guys of Yhwach. Now, they're obviously different tiers. I do think that Gerard is stronger than Askin. Askin is the one that Kisuke fights. But they are, you know, they're somewhat relative. They're in the same kind of ballpark. And Kenpachi really does not do well against Gerard. So if we were saying that Unohana at the very most is scaling to a weaker Kenpachi than that, and then you have Kisuke, while he's fighting a lower opponent, actually getting the victory over Askin, I do think if we kind of chain scaled them, we would put Urahara above Unohana. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought there. The names sound too similar. Urahara and Unohana. It really, for a second I thought I'd said the complete wrong name. Hopefully I didn't, and hopefully I didn't just make an ass out of myself. But yes, we have Kisuke Urahara in 4th place. In 3rd place, we have Shunsui Kiraku. The reason I place him above Unohana, even though she was kind of like a mentor figure to him, is just because even though she was said to be the strongest captain of the original Gotei 13, Shunsui wasn't a captain at that stage, meaning that that statement doesn't apply to him. He could have gotten stronger than what a lot of the original captains were at. He's so incredibly dangerous with his Bunkai, being able to bring enemies into the 3-4 stages of his play and everything that he can do there. He has such a versatile Shikai, where his Shikai is so overpowered, it's like a Bunkai to a lot of other characters. So I think he would be able to I think his Bunkai would be able to take out both Urahara and Unohana. There might be a line of thinking that Urahara might be able to reconstruct his body after getting his head blown off, but I'm not inclined to believe that, and I will give it to Shunsui for 3rd place, beating Kisuke and Unohana. Now, these 3 characters as well are in their own tier. It's these 3, and then Gin is in his own separate one, and then we had Kenpachi and Byakuya. And then the last here, it should be no surprise, but we start getting into kind of transcendent characters or borderline transcendent. With 2nd place, we have Yamamoto. And I'm just going to say it, the 1st place, we have Aizen. I don't think that it's much of a debate. Even though Yamamoto wasn't able to go Bunkai, and he had his Zanpakuto sealed, just how strong Aizen gets in his full Hogyo state is just absolutely outrageous. And I just think that, especially with also the, you know, not the niche, but the kind of subtle abilities of his Shikai, with his overwhelming power of being in that Hogyo state, I do think that he would be able to beat Yamamoto, and I would rank him above. But it would be a really, really close fight. I reckon Yamamoto in Bunkai is really putting on the pressure. But thanks to the Hogyoku, it really kind of gives Aizen all the versatility, the survivability in the world. Kisuke was only able to beat him by sealing him. And, you know, that was after being cut in half by a transcendent Ichigo in Mugetsu. So I do think that Aizen will just be able to overwhelm Yamamoto in that state. Even though he doesn't use his Kyoka Suigetsu against Ichigo, there's no reason why we wouldn't think he could use it in conjunction with his demon Hogiko form. So I'm going to give Aizen number 1, and then we're going to give Yamamoto number 2. I'm just realizing, I am so sorry, where I would place Komamura, and that would be in 7th place with Byakuya. So I would place him in 6th place above Byakuya. I think Komamura in that state is beating every character on the list other than Gin and Up. Gin's Bunkai, I think, would just destroy Komamura. Because even though he's immortal, if his entire body is just disintegrated, he can't do anything to begin with. So I will stop his kind of progress at Gin if he was running the gauntlet. But yeah, I reckon he would be stronger than Kenpachi and Byakuya. Of course, if we're doing the 1,000-Year Blood versions of those two, they're stronger than that version of Komamura. But that's where I put him, just so we can give him some love, because he's, you know, if you look at any video, people really kind of shit on him, and it makes me sad, because I do like Komamura as a character. But guys, that's been our video for tonight. We have ranked every single member of the Gotei 13. It was a treat to make this one. I'm glad I added the extra characters, because this is a list where once you kind of get the middle done and keep going forward with the most powerful characters, I think it becomes more standard where they go. But when you throw those 4 extra characters in, it kind of really does change it up a little bit. I do think the bottom of the list might be the most controversial, which is a little bit interesting. But let me know down in the comments what you guys think of where you would place the Gotei 13. And if you like this video, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. But guys, I've been Jack Cypher. It has been my distinct pleasure being able to decipher the Gotei 13 from weakest to strongest. Have a lovely night, everyone.